Conversations across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across time.
Good evening and welcome to part 4 of a series that we have been doing on concerning the need to educate Mr. Trump. And back tonight with us are Mark Hoffman. Mark Hoffman, as you know, is the Conversation Across Time show historian, and he is also a retired Philadelphia school teacher. Welcome, Mark.
Great to be back, and I think this is an important segment, and the whole thing is important.
And that's what we aim for. Seated next to Mark is Warren Cooper. Warren Cooper has, as a member of the ensemble, has played many roles on Conversations Across Time. And we are now bringing him back just to discuss the various roles that he's played and how we think, and this conversation is about what we think can be done to address exactly what is going on today and how it connects to so many other things. Now, you remember last time we met, Countess Berthold was here, and Countess Berthold talked about many things and the similarities between Hitler and our current president. So with that, I'm just going to ask either one of you two gentlemen to jump in here. Tell me what you think as you perceive your characters and how they would respond, how you respond. Let's just talk about it. Let's put it all out there.
The thing is, I mean, the Countess talked about the similarities between what Hitler said and what Trump has said and what he's trying to carry out, and it's amazing that people don't see it. I mean, from attacking a minority group, scapegoating we call it, to promising to put everybody back to work, rebuild the infrastructure, and of course make the country great again. You know, Hitler.
Yes.
And in addition, attacking the press. One of Hitler's favorite sayings was lumpen press or lion press.
Doesn't that?
And Trump yells
Yes.
that out all the time, and he's trying to discredit the press. So we need to look at that. And I think the important thing is, and we're starting to see it, that the people in Germany, and the Countess did a show, and I remember that show, they thought he was a buffoon,
Yes.
that he was a fool, that they could control him, that, you know, where we know once he gets into power, he doesn't mean all of this stuff, and they saw they were wrong. And I think Warren said, as we were preparing and talk, that Trump's doing almost everything he promised. I mean,
well, the funny thing about this presidency is that if you back up from how you feel about the things
Yes.
that he's doing, you know, he's been very consistent.
yeah.
I mean, he's doing all the stuff he said he was going to do. Now, that being the case, you know, he said he was going to do it then, and people voted for him. Now, I understand that there's a question about how many and the difference between going to an electoral college
And the popular
Trump
vote.
University and the popular vote, and how certain things get counted. All of those things, as interesting as they are moot because he's the president now. So, you know, we could go to war tomorrow and all of this would be, and we might, you know, just based on how this is. But in my experience with corporate America and with the way that people take control of a thing, you can come on and think of it as a bus, right? So the bus driver changes. Well, if you, as a bus driver, just drive the bus, and you know everybody's pretty much doing what they're doing. If you get on the bus, you're driving like this, and everybody's holding on for dear life. And after a moment, you've got everybody's attention.
And that is exactly.
And this is where we are. So,
Yes.
Yeah,
you know,
but I think
there's obviously negative things to say about
but
that.
if you ask, and the Countess will allude to this or speak directly to it, if you ask the German people before the invasion of Poland or before the war, what they thought about Hitler, they said he did everything he promised and we loved him. And if Trump fulfills his promises, gets rid of the undocumented immigrants, restores the economy, which I don't think he'll be able to do, but if he does, the people will love him just like they loved Hitler, regardless of the consequences. And that's, I think,
which is an interesting commentary on where we are. That's my point in saying that he was elected.
I was just going to say that.
Is that, you know, so this is not, you know, it's not a couple of people thinking like this.
Right.
Right.
You know, you got, you know, you really have, from an international perspective, the whole adjustment. Some would say the perversion, but that's just a choice of words based on your point of view of what America is, of what America, in quotations, should be doing. Now, you know, as the shining city on a hill, all of that, well, I mean, you know, the more we learn about history, the more we know that, you know, there was some fake light, right? I mean, a lot of
I'm
it.
not sure if it was you or not. It might have been you. It might have been one of the other characters in one of the shows quoted Winston Churchill saying, if England ever were in a state and of the decay and we needed a leader to get us out, I pray we could find a Hitler.
That was Winston Churchill.
Yes.
And he said it pre the invasion of Poland.
Right.
And I tell you what strikes me is the similarities between Trump and Hitler are scary. And I say it from the standpoint of how did Hitler get there? The aristocracy, and no one wants to talk about this, but the aristocracy looked at what happened in Russia and looked at what happened to the Russian people of means when communism came into being. And remember, communism was the third largest party in pre-war Germany, so that the aristocracy was looking out for their interests, and they thought that this little corporal was someone that they could control.
Wasn't Frederick Douglass on the show with the Countess? And
Yes.
I think he said the very same thing.
Yes.
Isn't Frederick Douglass still alive?
Yes. That's what we have to
We have to listen. President Trump, news flash: Frederick Douglass is dead. You said he's doing good
You know
work.
what must have happened, though?
What happened?
Maybe he saw Conversations Across Time, that episode,
And he didn't
saw
understand.
Frederick Douglass, and he thought he was still alive
Or maybe
because he
he's
was
not-
on the panel.
Or maybe he's not thinking about Frederick Douglass or anybody who looks like Frederick Douglass. And that is just a passing tone. I think, you know, you see these things. A president that goes in front of the newly constructed African American Museum in Washington, D.C., and talks about the Holocaust. Right? So
I'm not mentioning the Jews when he mentioned the Holocaust.
But I'm just saying that it reminds me of the movie. I'm reminded of the movie Trading Places, where if my way of looking at our current president
Yes.
is that if you start from the time that he said that Mexicans were drug dealers and thieves and rapists, just start from that moment in time and move it till now. And then look at it through the lens of Mortimer and whatever his friend's name were when they were in the bathroom betting each other $1 that they could make so-and-so do that. So if you think of I bet you won't say that Mexicans are thus and so. I will too say that. I bet you won't go in front of the African American Museum and talk about the Holocaust. Yeah, I'll do that, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, so it has a particular storyline, it has a particular humor, but it illuminates that people who are grabbing power, who are choking it, and who are choking us in the process, aren't really thinking about us at all in terms of just having those rights being not about black people, but being about all people.
Yes.
But that struggle had an international audience. That struggle had there was a moral compass, and the moral compass has a magnet on top of it nowadays. So really, there's a discrepancy as to who's American, who's not, and you have a system in terms of checking the integrity of the system. So you have a system that comes to a country, raids the country, decimates the indigenous population, groups them into reservations, and we're going to leave slavery and all of that out of it because
just
I'm
talk about
talking
the Native
about the
Americans.
land.
Yes, okay.
Right? And so this land is pursuant to treaty, and these are the very treaties that are at this moment being violated as the Dakota Access Pipeline goes through. So when you're talking about a system that can produce both that protection and then the mechanisms to subvert that with people's humanity, and it's in your face. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Here's
The EPA.
But well, wait a minute. I want to just say something. I'm going to throw this in because I've not heard anyone make this reference. And for our audience members who were fans of the Today Show, when Brian Gumbel, who I loved, I had a mad crush on Brian Gumbel. What can I tell you? But anyway, Brian Gumbel was the lead on the Today Show, and he did a special on, I think it was something like Being Black in America Today. And he had it set up like the old Hollywood Squares show where you had all of these people in squares. And back to your point about, I bet you won't stand in front of at the Smithsonian African American Museum display and make a statement about the Holocaust. You said, I bet I will. So the premise was Hollywood Squares, and they were being asked questions about race. And Donald Trump was in a square and Spike Lee was in a square. And so Donald Trump, and I'm so clear because Warren, you and I talked about this after it happened, and this was many years ago. Donald Trump sits in a square and he says, well, I'll tell you, if I was able to do this and transcend, he didn't use the word transcend, that's too big for him, but anyway, if I was able to make myself be anything that I wanted to be today, I think that because of the opportunities that are available for black men, I would like to come back and live today as a black man. And Brian Gumbel kind of like did what you did, sort of. And the other people in squares, I don't remember who they were, just kind of like looked away. And Brian Gumbel, because he was hosting the show, and we know what hosting means, he's trying to corral the energy back. So he goes to Spike Lee with a question. And Spike Lee, this is when Spike Lee was a young buck, had just done She's Gotta Have It. And Spike Lee said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Donald Trump, you mean to tell me you're going to sit here and tell me that you want to trade places with me? Now, I'm pretty sure that the scenario you pointed to about each betting themselves $1 about what you don't have the nerve to do is why Donald Trump did that. Because Donald Trump certainly has done everything he can do to make certain that when he talks about making America great again, he's talking about making America make America white again. Back to 1955 when these black folks knew their place.
So all of that is true.
Yes.
All of that is true. But it's dangerous to talk about it outside of a systematic context.
Okay.
Because the clown is only one part of the circus, right?
There you go.
So, you know,
Who's the ringmaster?
The fact is that there are lots of different things that are going on, and if you, generally speaking, you know, in every movie that you've ever seen, somebody's pinned down, they'll say, I'll create a diversion, right?
Yes.
So the diversion is very orchestral now. It is not borderline ridiculous. It is ridiculous,
Okay.
right?
There's
So
no
we can
borderline.
all agree that it's ridiculous. So to talk about it being ridiculous seems to me to be
A waste
of time. What we need to be, I think, talking about is who does this series of behaviors, these series of things, who does it serve, right? So that we can identify with some tangible nature the group of people. It's not somebody who's orange, who sometimes wears a blue tie and sometimes wears a red tie. And Dick Gregory says he's different people when he wears a tie.
Oh, I love it.
I believe there's something
The
to
tie
that,
changes the
but
personality?
I'm not going to
Okay.
double click that. I'm going to say, though, that, you know, he represents, you know, I said on one of the other shows, he's the tip of the iceberg. And as we're reacting is fine. We need to act. And in order to act, we need to get an angle on the problem that actually sees it for what it is.
Yeah,
and
right.
it's not a person. This is not a personal
I agree
thing.
with
This
you,
is
and you have to look. I mean, that's why it's so important that what the Countess says before, because it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by one individual. It's systematic. It's power groups. It's the people around them that institute these policies. And we need to know what their policies and what their goals are.
And don't forget the 50 let's just say it was only 47% of the people that voted for him, and he cheated for the rest of it. Let's just say that to satisfy people who
Yeah,
think
they
that
like
kind
what
of
he's doing.
it's still 47%. I mean, he won 50. Whatever the popular
But
vote
47% of the people that voted, and all the people didn't vote.
but
is
if
that
you
people
went-
that the number I'm talking about the number of people
Right.
who embraced that
Well,
rhetoric.
that's the
To me,
scariest thing.
So,
That's
well,
the
it's scary,
scariest
but
thing.
it's the thing that requires
Our
direct
attention.
is what I'm saying.
Well, that's
I
what
mean,
we're talking about bringing Trump here and educating them, but really, the whole focus is on educating the people to be vigilant in what they can
Yes.
do. So I mean, Trump's not. Maybe he would come because he's so off the wall. Just to be on television, he'll come here. But I think the thing is that it's insidious. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's the scary thing. And that's the people say, okay, well, so what? They infringed on the First Amendment, or so what? He banned the Muslims, it doesn't affect me, or so what? He's throwing out the Mexicans and rounding them up without due process. Which is, again, getting back to the system, because due process is really, an integral part of everything in the legal system we do. And if you don't have due process, nothing else in the legal system really works.
And from a Thurgood Marshall perspective, the process, some people get more due than others in the process. So it's about how you deal with that. We'll call it a phenomenon.
I just saw they held Muhammad Ali's son.
Yes.
Because, I mean,
that's what he gets for being named Ali. There's the Patriot Act, so we can
Yeah,
look
right,
at
exactly.
you through
No,
your cell
exactly.
phone.
And-
so I'm just saying that as you're looking at this as from
And yesterday was the anniversary of the Reichstag fire, which Hitler purposely set to stir up public opinion,
Yes.
to really institute martial law and take away civil rights. And I wouldn't surprise me if we have a terrorist attack.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Then what happens is, it seems to be that the table is already set for something to happen as a diversion.
a continued diversion.
A continued
'Cause
diversion.
We've already got a fireworks
Yes.
display.
Yeah,
of diversion.
you're right. You're right.
So the question for me is, so what's the what's the play? And I think that we can talk about a lot of different opinions about, when you see if you can see the left hand, the right hand is probably in your pocket,
That's
right?
right.
Or someplace else.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what's going on with that? And of course they have more than one other hand. So, that's why, the whole systems piece becomes important, because, you can take it to the street and blow up the street, but then you got a blown up street that nobody's going to fix.
Right.
And so it's not about blowing stuff up and burning stuff down. It's really about how it is that we organize ourselves to a place of leverage to use the system that we have to actually counteract this thing, and to simultaneously attack the places, and I mean peacefully attack the places where corruption has made injustice a regular thing.
We've got to, as we always ask our audience, it's important for you to be vigilant. It is important for you to participate. These town hall meetings that are happening with these representatives, because if you continue to show up, and Babette, as a former elected official, our director is a former elected official, they understand what it means. When an elected official looks out and sees, or can't get into his office because constituents are asking questions and demanding to be heard, I mean, that's a powerful weapon. So it has to happen on a number of levels, but I don't want anyone watching this show to think that it's not important for you to show up for Tuesday Toomeys and Tuesday with Toomey, and let him know that you object to the things that are happening in the Senate and that his vote needs to be different. Every place that anyone that's watching this show that is a constituent in any division, any area, you need to be out there, you need to be demonstrating, you need to be letting yourself be heard. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the only thing that needs to happen. And that, to your point, is where we are. And that's what we aim to do here at Conversations Across Time. We aim to keep you informed, to have you ask questions. Because if you're not asking questions, we're not doing our job. And guess what? We are very serious about our job. I want to talk for a moment, if you can, about this ongoing battle that Mr. Trump is creating with the press. Is that a diversion?
So yes, I mean you can't see what's happening through muddy water, and again the similarities with the Hitler regime, all of that resonates and rings true, and a lot of that conversation is sensationalist. But I mean, if we back up and just ask ourselves what that means, the irony is that the press made him. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So the
that is
this
absolutely
is what I'm saying.
true.
It again, you've got ridiculous going on, and the notion that a president who represents all of the people, and the press who report to all of the people, and as a gathered group, they represent theoretically the entire constituency of the United States. When you take a piece of the press and tell them they can't come to something, or begin to talk about fake news, during the debate, one of the debates between I think it was the last one, where they asked Donald Trump about whether he would if he lost the election,
would he
he would
concede?
concede,
Oh, yes.
right? Okay,
Yes.
so to me that's a moment in time that deserves looking, because if you're a bully and you're a cheater, right? And I don't know this because I'm one. I know this because I watch people who do it.
Yes.
The first thing you do is accuse somebody of doing what you're doing, right?
Okay.
So he said to her, well, I don't know whether I would or not. I don't know whether I would or not. And she said, well, it's ridiculous that he would say that. And then she became ineligible to actually say anything about what they had done with this fixing
Yes.
of the election
Yes.
piece.
Yes.
So when you talk about the press doing fake news, well, somebody who's lying, the first thing they're going to do is call somebody else a liar. Right?
No, my grandmother used to say that.
But from a tactical perspective,
It makes
but
sense.
again, if you zoom out and see it all as misdirection,
Yeah.
the question is, what's going on behind the smoke?
The Yiddish word for a cheat or a thief is a ganef. My grandmother always used to say, it takes a ganef to know a ganef.
Yes. Yes.
And the thing is that with the press, and I agree with you, it's a diversion. I think they're setting the stage for when the expose comes about the connection between Russia and the election
And the campaign.
and the campaign, that they will have already diverted the attention and discredited the press. So whatever news organization prints that story, they're already set up. It's fake news. It's the lying New York Times. I mean, it's just from lying Ted Cruz to the lying New York Times. It's the lying New York Times. It's the fake news CNN. So I think Warren's right. It's definitely a diversion, and it's setting it up. And we know, from everything in history, that's the first thing that autocrats do is, you get rid of the press and then have your own state press. And we already see now that Breitbart and all those
He's
right-wing
brought them
news,
into
they get access where the
Yes.
other news agencies don't get access. So, I agree it's a diversion, and they know something's going to come out, and they're trying to
Set the table in
control
such
it
a
in
way.
every way they can, interfering with the having Rice Previs contact the FBI to try to, which goes against everything that democracy stands
Yes.
for. So that's one aspect.
One kind of democracy, because there's another kind of democracy
right.
that works just like that.
Right,
But that's the point, though. And,
Yeah,
and the other casualty of this press piece is the introduction of the concept of fake news.
Yes.
Right. So here's a
Yes.
question: how do you tell fake news from real news? And it's probably the same as if you can, that's the
If I
adage
say
that
it's
if
real,
you-
and if you say it's
well,
fake, that's
okay. So yeah, but if you see a fool and someone else fighting in the street, it's difficult to know which one of them is the fool and which one's
That's
not.
exactly right.
So
Yes.
how
Then you discredit it all.
the measurement of
Veracity.
what news is fake and what news is not has to do with basically what you said, but the lines that are drawn between that are about who's reputable, whose report will you believe, So the
And that's
question
exactly
is,
what it is.
So when you can divide that sensation, it enhances the favorable conditions.
No,
for
I agree with
fear,
you. I mean,
right?
here's a
I-
man that's been checked every time about the results
checked.
of the election
Yes.
with the Electoral College, and he keeps saying we want a landslide in the Electoral, and everybody keeps pointing it out, and he keeps saying it.
But
They
the
keep
clarity
correcting
of
him.
his, but the clarity of his, I'm not going to call it lying. I'm going to call it his alternative interpretation of established facts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that pattern is not a new pattern.
No, it's
like
not.
it happened,
And it works.
and it was verified as happening
And it works.
before everybody who voted did that.
That's what you're right. It works.
So
That's
I'm just saying
the
that
problem works.
that the issue, is not one. It's a hoodwinked, but it's much more complex than
No,
sleight of hand.
But Goebbels said, lie big and keep lying, and keep lying and keep lying.
I want to, if just to bring another perspective to this. One of my favorite comedians was Lenny Bruce, and Lenny Bruce tells the story of a woman coming home unexpectedly and finding her husband in bed with another woman, and the upset, the whatever. And Lenny Bruce explains to his wife, well, this woman came in and she had a fever, she was cold, and I was just laying on top of her. She was shivering, I was laying on top of her to keep her warm. And he says, now, why does the wife believe that? They believe it because they want to believe it. It's the old African American line. Are you going to believe me or are you going to believe your lying eyes? So that these people, when Trump talks about that he's bringing jobs back, he's bringing the coal industry back, he's going to build infrastructure, everyone's going to have money, he's going to give these tax breaks to the wealthy people, and the tax breaks are going to trickle down economics, which everybody knows does not work, then what we are presented with is that you have a populace, a citizenry of his core voters who actually want to believe what he's saying. Lenny Bruce says, my wife knows that the story I told her wasn't true, but I told her a story. And I'm just thinking that what we see now are all of these people who are anticipating or expecting that the economy is going to change to their benefit, when all the signs are there that there's no way that they're going to benefit.
And preserving the system for the good of the country, then Trump, who acts like an absolute monarch, who really isn't.
But Henry is an absolute monarch, had the intelligence to know
that's what I'm
that,
saying.
You don't have to take 90% of it. If you just take 69%.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So the system was,
Right.
even if he rigged it with all the judges and all of it, because that's, that was part of his thing too.
Of course.
But the thing is, the things that you, when you say that, you understand that we are now in the grips of an administration that has no humanity about what it is that they should be taking for that 1%. Because the 1% wants it all. They are not satisfied. They're not satisfied to have more than everyone else. They want everything. It's kind of like the Richard Pryor joke about somebody coming to take your dreams. They don't even want you to have dreams.
I said one time that Donald Trump is the bastard child of Gordon Gekko and Ayn Rand. And if the people don't know who Gordon Gekko is from the movie Wall Street, and he said, greed is good.
Greed is good.
And Ron said, whatever you can do to fulfill your own thing and screw the other people.
They have accepted it because they have a need to believe it. Because what is their alternative?
So what you describe at some point becomes is able to be called delusional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So if we are in fact delusional, what's the remedy for that? Like, what's it going to take for, people are walking around in the street, people are mad, people like us, we're talking about it, but again, all of it, you're throwing stones at a plexiglass house.
Yes, yes.
If you're talking about it personally with Trump, so I think a lot of the awakening. I mean, the irony that he has been consistent, like he's been among the more consistent of people who did the stuff they were going to say. They said they were going to do, like right away.
But
he came in kicking over
Hitler's
stuff.
the same thing.
He did.
To me, that's the scary part.
That's
Yes.
it.
I mean, if you took two elected officials, which Hitler was elected, and you said, who's the two that lied the least to the public, it would be Hitler and Trump.
Yeah.
Everything
Which is
Hitler,
ironic.
everything Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf, he tried to do or did.
Yes.
And everything Trump promised in the campaign and all the rhetoric, he's trying to do. And that's the scary thing.
Very good. And with that, we will end this. I hope that this has been as helpful to you as we aimed it to be. I hope you're asking yourselves questions, and I hope you're asking your elected officials questions, because guess what? You do have some leverage.